Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to World This Morning. I'm your host Hajra Sati and joining me is my wonderful co-host who happens to be Fahim Mangesh. Assalamu alaikum Fahim, and today happens to be Monday morning, and I think after a respite of the rainfall yesterday, there's some respite in terms of the scorching heat, right Fahim? So how are you feeling?
Yes, and walaikum assalam, and you're quite right here. The respite is much needed, and but I think the negative part here that there has been an increase in humidity, but we can deal with the humidity. The heat wave was very painful, I must say, and it even caused so much problems in the people who work in the open, out in the open, be the construction workers, be the daily laborers. It was very difficult for them. Everyone was crying this time. So yes, there has been a respite, and we're quite happy and thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. And I hear that you had gone on a vacation.
Yes, I did enjoy some very scenic and pristine beauty of the northern areas of Pakistan. But without any further ado, I think we would like to introduce our guest, because we are going to talk about an impact that cinema has on our daily lives in terms of the storytelling and in terms of how the narrative and the storytelling is very gripping. And as a humans, we have the tendency to always listen to and get attracted towards the stories, right? It's not just the little kids, it's also the elder ones. So we want to explore it, and then there's one particular storyteller who also happens to be a director. His film is being premiered on this Friday. We want to explore, so what sort of story is he making, and what sort of medium is he using, particularly when we talk about storytelling and particularly when we talk about the cinema culture. So without any further ado, we are very glad that we have been joined by Shahryar Ali. Shahryar has done his graduation from the NCA, and he has a lot of accolades to his name. So we will explore that. Assalamu alaikum Shahryar, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me.
Right.
Shahryar, it's a pleasure having you, and it's always a pleasure meeting artist fraternity. So as a filmmaker, I would say, in Pakistan specifically speaking, when we talk about the neighboring country, when we talk about the Western culture, there is a lot of culture as far as filmmaking is concerned, right? But we here, we tend to watch things more online in the comfort of our homes. We don't usually see many people thronging to the cinema houses, right? So although the experience is a totally different experience, I mean, it's out of this world going to the cinema itself. But how do you feel the cinema culture evolving in Pakistan over time? Because the culture that used to be, it was really a thriving culture in Pakistan. But now the scenario is pretty different, don't you think so?
And also tell us about your story. What is the name of your film, and you know, the nitty-gritties of it?
Sure, I'm starting with your question. I can't speak much for the past, but the thing is that, well, globally cinema has been in a decline, especially since COVID.
Since COVID,
Since
yes.
COVID, because people now prefer to like watch things from the comfort of their own home, even though there's nothing compared to the communal experience of enjoying a film with other people in the cinema, the way they were meant to be enjoyed. But obviously, you know, time evolves, and the art form evolves as well. There was a time where films didn't have sound came, and silent films died out. Similarly, it's sad to say, but maybe cinema, it's not going to die out, but I feel like it's not going to be very popular as it maybe used to be.
Right, and also please tell us about your film that is going to be premiered.
Right, so my film Bach Malanga, it's a crime drama, has elements of dark comedy. It's 35 minutes long, and what's interesting about this film is that it has 20 minutes of the film is actually all inside one car.
And that's
so
very interesting.
yeah, it's like just three people having a dialogue in one car, and I really love films that are very heavily based on dialogue and that just revolve around just witty, just he said this and then she said that. I love films like those, so I really wanted to try out one, and so this is what we did, and we've been receiving some really good responses, exactly.
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot the word responses.
That's okay, that's okay, that's fine.
We all do.
We all do
experience
it.
that, yes.
Yeah.
But I think when we particularly talk about the cinema making, and like Fahim very aptly mentioned that how in Pakistan that culture is dying down, and there are lots of reasons for that. I think one of the reason is because of the inflation and because of the high ticket prices. But Shahryar, when we talk about your particular venture into this streaming film that will be premiered on YouTube primarily, right? So number one, tell us about the summary, what is the plot around, and why should we go and watch it, right? And secondly, how was your experience? What was the challenging moments that you faced in the production of this entire film?
Well, like I said, the entire film is, well, not the entire film, but like I would say 70 to 80% of the film is filmed inside a car. So for me, the most challenging part was shooting the car, because we rigged the entire car with 3 different cameras at one time. Because I mean, it's not conventionally done, but I like to have multi-camera shoots for films as well, like the way you guys do in the studio, because I feel like it has less jumps between the dialogue. I like to give the actors a playground to just purely improvise and just go for it with their performances. So I feel like the multicam style really allows us to do that. So we had rigged the entire car, which was a challenge. It used to take us like maybe 2 to 3 hours to just rig the car. We'd have to be just waiting, and we'd be doing rehearsals and other stuff meanwhile, but that was quite challenging.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, what sort of challenges did you face? And please tell us about the plot of this particular story. So why should we go and watch it?
So the plot, well, you should watch it because it will make me happy.
Yeah.
But
Apart from that,
it's been receiving some good responses. The plot, without giving much away, I'll tell you that it's about a private driver who lets a few passengers into his car whom he maybe shouldn't have let in.
Okay, yes.
So things get a little difficult for him
What
in that
inspired this
situation.
plot line? This is very interesting.
So ever since school, I've been traveling in a lot of local transport.
Okay.
The 111 number and all the local transport, every city I go to, I use the local transportation. So I come across a lot of different characters. And as an artist, it's good to have a strong observation, and I try to keep that. And so I usually observe people in their natural habitat, how they talk. And I remember just this one time going from Lahore to Islamabad in a private car because something was wrong with the bus services that day. And just it was me and 3 other random people inside that car who I didn't know, they didn't know me, and just the thought that came into my mind that, you know what, something really bad could happen right now, and what if it did?
Oh, lovely, lovely.
That's what inspired the film.
And also something like that you mentioned, you said it's about dark comedy, right? Dark comedy is something that's not very common in Pakistan. So what inspired you to take this decision and jump off to this? Okay, let's experiment this in Pakistan.
So I wouldn't say it was a very conscious decision. More, it was something that just happened while writing. Because the way I write is, initially I write the characters, and then I move towards the dialogue.
Okay. Right.
Because my theory is that, for example, let's say you were to imagine a dialogue between 2 complete strangers. Might be hard to do. But if I were to tell you to imagine a dialogue between 2 of your best friends, might be a lot easier because you know those people.
Yeah.
So I like to write my characters to the point where I know them like they're my best friends. So it's easier for me to write the dialogue between them. So once I had the characters down, it just seemed right to write the way that they would speak. And they just, as I wrote them, they sort of found their own way, and they just became these serious but funny people. The kind of people who are serious in their own way, but it's just the situation that makes their serious troubles seem funny to the audience.
Right, and I think now because Shahriyar is mentioning about the plot line, and that's very interesting intersection of safe spaces in Pakistan and how it intersects with the public transport, because there's a guy who is offering a help to some of the strangers, travelers, and that journey goes really wrong. So why not go and take a look at the pictorial representation of what Shahriyar has made. So, and after that we will have a comprehensive discussion on that, on the safe spaces and public transport.
ਦੱਸ ਓਏ ਬੋਲ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਛੁਪਾਈ ਹੋ ਬੋਲ ਅਬਰਾਰ ਭਾਈ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਤੋਂ ਟੇਪ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਪੁੱਛੋ 28 ਜੂਨ 28 ਜੂਨ 28 ਜੂਨ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਦਸ਼ਮਨ ਲੰਗਾ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ
Lovely. And I think that actually I can imagine what the story must be like, and I think I would love to watch this because obviously this is something that we need to encourage. Our people, our cinema, our films, and I think we always encourage the neighboring country or the West for that matter. But
Right.
yes, our filmmakers need
Right.
to be encouraged as well. They need that, and I think this needs to be promoted as much as we can because we did see a clip of that comedy moment there, and I really loved it. And I think it must be full of that because, as he said, it's full of dark comedy, and I am really looking forward to it because only a creative person can come up with dark comedy.
And I think when you approach the platforms like the YouTube, so you have a lot more creative liberties which cinema might not afford you. But Shahriyar, now let's speak on the power of observation, right? And I've seen that especially people who are very creative, they're very observant, they're very keen observers, and that is reflected in the plot lines that you see, the storylines that you see. But nowadays, because of the commercialization, we do see that the power of observation has somehow diluted a lot, right? People just go and then they write, because you're telling about that you write the character sketches and you have a very comprehensive sort of character sketch in your mind, and then you write the characters and then their dialogues out there, right? So why do you feel, or do you think, how can we change that dynamic when we talk about our own, cinema or storytelling industry particularly? And how important do you think is the power of observation?
I feel like observation is everything because at the end of the day, if you look at it in a certain way, art is theft. But there's a there's a difference between observing life and observing other people's work. And I feel like what a lot of people currently in the industry, unfortunately, are doing is they're observing other people's works around the world, and instead of trying to creatively take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, what some people tend to do is they tend to take a whole chunk out of one work that they've seen and just recreate the whole thing. And
That
expect
happens
that,
in music industry as
yeah,
well.
that if it was a
yes.
hit there, it's going to be a hit here.
Yeah.
But I feel like the real genuine way to do things is to just observe life and take a little bit from there, because that's just more genuine, it's more raw. And and more on this point, that I understand that if you take something that's already a hit, it might have the chances to become a hit, but that's just you following up on trends and having a little bit of the breadcrumbs that someone else has left behind.
Yeah.
There always has to be that one insane person to show up and do something completely different and then set a new trend basically, and then other people end up copying their work. So there always has to be that one person.
A certain level of insanity has to be there. You're very right, because if you are passionate about things, you have to be insane. What is the percentage of insanity that you have?
Oh, it's a little over 100%, I would say.
All right, and another thing that I would like to ask, they say that creativity cannot be learned, although there are universities which teach storytelling, filmmaking, there are proper degree programs there. You yourself are a graduate from NCA. How much do you think your school, your graduate degree program helped you in becoming what you are?
So there's this theory about creativity where a lot of people have romanticized the idea of creativity to the point where they feel like creativity is something that you're just born with, or like you either have or you don't have.
Yeah, yeah.
But I truly believe that there is no substitute for hard work. If you take someone who's naturally creative, who doesn't do anything with their time, and then you take this one person who has no creativity whatsoever, but they spend every day doing the same thing over and over again. It's the same theory. If you practice the same punch every day, you'll get better at it, rather than you
But
just...
then, Shahriyar, for example, I do sing, I know singing, so I know that either you are born with it or you're born without it, right? Even if you spend hours and hours every day trying to hone your skills in singing, you won't be able to sing like a person who's a pro, or perhaps who has that inborn talent, right? To move through the tones and, create a sur. So what would you say regarding that?
Well, okay, I see your point, but the thing is that you have to put in your 10,000 hours, whether you're born with it or you're not born with it. Even if you're someone who's born with it,
Yeah.
if you don't practice, if you don't do your riyaz, you're not going to get where you need to be.
True.
There's no
Agreed.
substitute for hard work at the end of the day, whether you're born with it or you're not born with it.
Right. And I think now let's talk about the medium of storytelling, because Shahriyar, you chose the OTT platform, the YouTube, right, which is the online platform. And like Fahim mentioned, that cinema-going culture is endangered, it's jeopardized in Pakistan because of the inflation, and maybe the storylines or the films that are coming, they're not pulling the crowds out of their homes, right? So how do you see the future unrolling when we particularly talk about the OTT platforms and when we talk about the YouTubes? Because the biggest OTT platform, so let's say Netflix, right? You know, Pakistani directors and their producers have to yet to make an inroads into those platforms,
Yes.
right? We haven't seen any Pakistani Pakistani-made Netflix drama as of now, right? So where do you think that in the future we might be having an entry into the Netflix, and how important is to capture that market?
I really hope so. I mean, there's a lot of people in the queue before me on their way to Netflix, so I'll leave that to them. However, as far as consumption of medium of art goes, there's obviously been a shift, and again, because like we mentioned earlier, an 800 rupee ticket with 400 rupee popcorn, with
Oh, yes.
1,000 rupees of food after the cinema per person is not possible for the majority of our nation.
True,
Yes.
true,
That's so we're basically making cinema an elitist thing,
true.
right? So it's hard to consume cinema when it becomes that, but almost a lot of people now have access to a screen in Pakistan,
That's true. That's
right?
true.
It's become mainstream. Like, people have access to the internet in some degree, and I feel like YouTube is probably, I mean, after TikTok, but YouTube is like for long form content right now the most accessible form of media.
Yes.
And I've made a film that I feel like would connect with a majority of people, and when we had screenings previously, we actually had around, I feel like 10 or 11 screenings, and 8 of them were houseful shows.
Lovely.
that's
Yeah, and
Lovely.
people were coming in, and we had a lot of repeat viewers. They'd bring their friends the next day to show them this film. So I have a strong gut feeling this film is gonna do good, and I actually encourage everyone to take some time out, and it's 35 minutes. It's gonna be worth your time.
So
Right,
let's
best of luck.
watch, I think, another clip from your film, and I think that will create more, what do you call that? What's that word again? Yes.
Momentum to, you know, to talk and explore this conversation.
ਮੈਂ ਫਿਲਮ ਸਟਾਰ ਮਲੰਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਣ ਲਈ ਆਇਆ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਨਵੀਂ ਫਿਲਮ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ 28 ਜੂਨ ਨੂੰ YouTube ਤੇ। ਉਹ ਜੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ। ਉਹ ਯਾਰ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਨੇ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਮਿੰਨਤਾਂ ਤਰਲੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਵੀ ਭਾਈ ਮੇਰੀ ਫਿਲਮ ਕਰ। ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਬੜਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅਵੋਇਡ ਕੀਤਾ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਯਾਰ ਜਿੰਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਏ ਯਾਰ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਹਾਂ ਕਰਤੀ। ਪਰ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਮੇਰੀ ਸੁਣ ਲਵੋ, ਉਹ ਕੋਈ ਰੋਮਾਂਟਿਕ ਸੀਨ ਨਾ ਪਾ ਦੇਣਾ, ਉਹ ਘਰੋਂ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਮਾਰ ਪੈ ਜੇ ਬੁੜੀ ਕੋਲੋਂ। ਚੱਲ ਪਾ ਦੇ ਯਾਰ, ਕੀ ਯਾਦ ਕਰੇਗਾ। ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਫਿਲਮ ਸਟਾਰ ਮਲੰਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਣ ਲਈ।
That's an interesting. One thing that strikes me in this entire conversation, and when we were watching the trailers, is that the use of the language is Punjabi. So
I was going to ask. Yes.
So is there any particular reason why you choose that? Because aren't you restricting the scope of that audience to a particular ethnicity, no?
How would a Pathan understand, for that matter? Yes.
This film, actually, I have a friend Munib, who's from Gilgit. He loves the film.
Oh.
He
I
loves
see.
it. He's seen it. He's seen it so many times, and he actually asked me to like transfer it to his laptop, just so he could keep watching it. It's the best thing for me. There's a lot of people other than Punjabi that have seen the film. They enjoy it. I mean, there's obviously going to be subtitles. Again, as far as a decision to make it Punjabi or Urdu, again, that wasn't a conscious decision to begin with. For me, it's very much about the flow of what I'm writing.
Right.
It's about the setting. This film is also going to have, I should warn people, some questionable language when they see the entire film. But I feel like that's not something I, again, plan on ever doing before I start writing. It just depends on the setting, that this is the setting, these are the people who are going to be involved in the setting, and then I just write whatever I feel like they would naturally say at that moment.
And because, like you said, you have been observing, and this is usually the language that we hear
Exactly.
in the daily lives, right? Also, is your future, all your future endeavors, are they dependent on the success of this film, or are you just, do you have things in pipeline that you want to do in the future?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I certainly wish this film does well. I do. But even if it doesn't, it's not going to stop me from doing what I need to do.
Okay, Sharia, so that's a
Lovely.
very interesting point, and I think that's very important to create your or to make your creative liberties alive, or to grease the engine of those creative liberties. But now also let's talk about when you speak about the language, and when you talk about the language that you use in Punjabi, and that was a very innate sort of a decision that you made. But also when we talk about the cinema going culture and versus the OTT platform versus the online representation, one thing that is very stark in the online platforms of the YouTube is that it's not a very sustainable model, right? Yes, you need creativity, yes, an artist need that, but at the end of the day, there are people who want to fulfill their bellies, right? So in terms of sustainability model, how do you see that approach, and if someone wants to make that as a source of their income, obviously that's a very turbulent waters in terms of the sustainability model. So how do you see that future unrolling?
Well, art itself is very turbulent, honestly. Like, I knew what I was signing up for.
But
the
I mean,
moment I did.
cinema culture is, there's a lot of money involved in that, right? And
Yeah.
it pays you off because we see that the actors and the very lucrative sort of the deals that they are making. But as compared to the YouTube or other mediums, they're very unsustainable in terms of, what money they fetch.
That's true. That's true. I wish I had a good answer to tell you as to how you can make a sustainable income through art. There really is no one fixed answer to answer, because everyone's art is different. Everyone's way of expressing their art is different. YouTube can be a decent career. It has been for a lot of people.
Yes,
People
YouTube
that monetize off YouTube,
Yes.
they've built some people have built generational wealth out of it. It honestly, I feel like there's money to be made in any medium if you do it well enough.
That's true. That's true. Well, Shehryar, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And also, we would like to know about any international projects that you perhaps would be collaborating in the future, if you have those in the pipeline, especially the US and Canada. And also, if you're going to be collaborating with the artists over there. And I'm talking about the future, right? Because it just started, and it's a brilliant start. And I mean, we wish and we hope that it's a brilliant success, landmark success for you. But what about the future? Because I'm really interested in that, because always a creative man, a creative person does look into the future, somewhat in the future, and does hope that this is supposed to or would be happening to him.
Oh, absolutely. I want to travel the world. I want to work internationally, and I've actually been blessed. I just did a short film in Canada. I directed a 1-minute film by the name of She. It was my first English script. I'd never written a script in English before, so She was that script, and it was a very nice experience. I have good friends over in Canada and the US who really helped me with it, and I actually DP'd a film. It started out as a short, became a feature eventually. This film called Biopari. I DP'd that. I was over there. It was a wonderful experience doing that project as well. And yeah, inshallah in the future I want to do projects Canada,
one
US,
after the other.
everywhere,
That's lovely to know, the initiative that you have, the drive that you have, the insanity and passion that you have.
Let's hope it stays.
That's yes, and we wish the momentum stays that way. We wish this drive stays that way, always throughout your life, and it never dies down. Because I understand there are many bottlenecks here. I understand there are many challenges here. But despite those, you decided to sign up for this. You knew what you're signing up for. One last message for all the people who want to come into filmmaking. One message for all, for the youth especially.
Again, like we were just talking about before, creativity. It's important. It's something you can say you're born with, maybe you're not, but again, hard work at the end of the day is always going to be your best asset. Work hard. If you're looking to get into filmmaking, into any medium whatsoever, just work hard, put in the hours, and inshallah.
Right,
will
and
succeed.
best of luck for your future endeavors and best of luck for your future projects. Thank you so much for coming to our show, and we wish you all of the best of luck for the 28th of June, which is the premiere date for your film. And with that, we are going on a short break. After we come back, we have an interesting discussion lined up, so don't go anywhere. Good morning. Welcome back, and we were having a very interesting discussion regarding cinema, culture, regarding the storytelling, and what is the power of narrative in all of that. And now, when we came back from the break, obviously we're going to have a very interesting discussion. That will hinge around a very personal tone, because we've seen in Islamabad the scorching heat that we witnessed, especially on the first 2-3 days of the Eid. Right, Fahim? And
exactly, and not just 2-3 days of Eid, even time before that.
Yes.
I think we had been having this heat wave since almost a month,
Right.
and people were getting really sick of it. And as Hajra said, this is coming from a very personalized point of view, because every day I would come to the studios, I would come to the newsroom, and I would be like, where is the AC? The temperature needs to go down. Even at home, the house would be boiling. It would take like, what, 1 hour to cool the room.
Right.
And so, yeah, things have been pretty difficult for people, not just in Pakistan, but all over the world. Emergencies have been declared. My sister is in the US. She said there's a heat wave, although the heat wave over there is not
as omnious as in
yes,
Pakistan.
Omnious is the right word, yes.
And I think in Saudi Arabia, where pilgrims were performing Hajj, so we have seen that 900 people have been affected, and they have died because of the intense and scorching heat. And out of that, 35 were Pakistani people. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their pilgrim and give them a higher rank in Jannah. So to discuss more and unroll a conversation on the climate change, on the heat wave, because there was a news that was telling us that there will be an intense monsoon season this year, and we are going to receive 35% more rain. So to further explore that, we are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Ijaz Saab. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and welcome to World This Morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Wa alaikum assalam.
Ijaz Saab, it's a pleasure having you. Now, Ijaz Saab, we have been talking about the heat wave. Now, we have been talking about the rain as well in the start of our program. Now, what sort of rain are we expecting? Because reports have been coming up. The news items have been saying that this year around we're going to be having a lot of rain. And Pakistan did have a lot of rain in 2022 as well. Is it going to be as disastrous as 2022? What is the Met Office expecting? What are the climate experts expecting this year?
Well, I think there are expectations that there will be much more rain, because you know that we did not have so far the pre-monsoon, which was a normal routine sort of activity that used to happen. We used to get rain end of May and in June also, which was part of the pre-monsoon. And then pre-monsoon has not started, and it seems like that we'll directly go into the monsoon. And then the evaporation process, like with the intense heat, the evaporation process is actually enhanced, and there is no outlet yet. So we are expecting that more and more clouds will be formed within the next few weeks, and then ultimately by mid of July, when the monsoon season starts, we will have more rains. So I think we need to prepare ourselves. This is a sort of like a preparation time for us also, that we should consider this as, like 30 to 40% more rains they are expected. Even, who knows, maybe it will be more than that.
Right, so Dr. Saab, as an expert in this particular field and as a layperson, I'm asking you this question: what sort of effects this rain will have on the agriculture? Because we know in Pakistan that we produce most of our food from the agriculture, and particularly when we talk about the southern Punjab, part of the Pakistan. So is it going to be good for the crops, or is it going to sow a destruction or havoc there? And what sort of precautionary measures do the farmers need to take in order to protect their fields or crops from this 35% more intense rain when we talk about the monsoon season?
I think this is a very important opportunity in time that we should start thinking about having more water reservoirs. Maybe I advocate always small to medium size of maybe water storage facilities, so that we'll have after this monsoon, then we have a dry season also, where we need water, and then water is not available. And it happened in 2022 as well, that we had floods, and right after floods there was a sort of like drought-like condition in Pakistan, where we did not get enough rain after that, and then there was hardly any water available for our agriculture. So this is a time that it is going to more rain, because in July people will start sowing rice, and rice need more water, the kind of varieties that we are using. So I think that will be a sort of a blessing, in a sense that we will get enough water for rice crop. But we have to be very careful to, as you mentioned, about the damages, because we have to prepare ourselves for that worst situation, and then manage the water, manage the flood, and already start working on how to manage it. If we don't start it, we are going to get, the damages that we got in 2020, Allah na kare. But then something, of that level, like 2022, we should not be, having that kind of damages. So it is a good time to plan, and then to think about how to utilize this excessive water, which is going to be a blessing for us, and we should not make it a nuisance and a disaster.
Definitely, Jasab. And also, being a climate expert, there does come a question in mind, because on one hand we have deforestation that cannot be denied, but on the other there is extensive construction, and we know that when the cement dries up, it releases a lot of carbon dioxide in the air. So it's just not the deforestation, it's just not the car pollution, it's the extensive construction as well. Don't you think we should also have a look at the level of construction that we're having all over the world, not just Pakistan?
Yeah, I think that is a very bigger issue, that we are urbanizing ourselves, and the situation, urban development is going on unplanned. Just give you example of Islamabad, where we, used to have more forest as compared to the current situation, and now it is more concrete jungle. And then the whole entire, this blue area, where we have multi-storied building, and every building have multiple air condition, so they keep inside cool, but then outside is a heat island. So every building is a heat island now. If you travel, you will feel that most of the air conditions are throwing heat. So there is an issue, a fundamental issue of urban planning, where we need more public transport as compared to vehicles. We need lesser roads and more urban and green areas. That is not happening. We need more, water recharge facilities. That is not happening. In the presence of buildings, in the presence of these metal roads, the water recharge is not happening. So underground water, the aquifer is draining out. People are using water. They almost every other house has a bore, which is now, from 150, water table has gone to 400 feet down. So the situation is getting worse with the passage of time. So there is a bigger issue of green urban development, green urban planning. We are just constructing buildings and buildings and buildings, but we are not taking care of the environment. We are not taking care of the future of the issues, the footprint that we are going to have in coming years. And this is going to have another, another issue.
Right, and Dr. Saab, so for example, this is summer season going on, and particularly when we talk about July, so this is a season when there's a summer vacation and people are flocking to the tourist spots, particularly in the Gilgit-Baltistan and the northern areas of Pakistan. So in the wake of this intense monsoon season, that monsoon rainfall that we are going to receive, and Met Office is predicting 35% more intensity. So what sort of precautionary measures will you dole out to all those tourists who are flocking and thronging to the western parts of the country, and particularly to the northern parts of the country, because we see that when there's an intense rainfall, mountain starts to move and there's a lot of soil erosion which is coming. So what sort of precautionary measures are, is 35% and staggering amount that we should keep in mind while moving towards the northern areas? What sort of advice would you give?
I think I'll advise them not to go, and I would actually suggest the governments to control this the movement of tourists, because most of the tourism is uncontrolled, unplanned. People go there and create mess over there. The areas which were pristine, natural, they are actually converting into trash grounds. We are not, like that kind of tourist, and even the agencies, the government departments are not controlling, are not managing the tourist facilities. Unfortunately, tourists go there, they park wherever they feel like, whether it's a sensitive ecosystem, whether it's a wetland or, a catchment area of a wetland. So they actually create more problems than, and the local people feel very unfortunate, because they say that the visitors, they come here and we manage this area throughout the whole year, but in 2 months' time, they destroy it to that extent that it is not recoverable. So unfortunately, tourism has to be ecotourism, and ecology should not be disturbed, so that the people can come over and over and over again. The situation in Naran, the situation in, a few years ago, there was this picture which I saw, that more than 60,000 vehicles were actually parked near Saiful Muluk area. So just imagine 60,000 vehicles, plus every vehicle would have 4 people. So 250 to 240,000 people are there. So how can, an area can manage that kind of mess? It's very unfortunate. There is a need to have a tourism policy for specific sites and tourism management plan. Unless and until we have that plan, we should not allow tourism in a particular area, especially those areas which are sensitive, ecologically important, and have much higher.
And I think that is also the need of the hour. It's not just for the propagation of the tourism, but also for the protection of the environment. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for enlightening us about the current conditions regarding the monsoon and its intersection with the climate change. And with that, we are bidding you farewell. So until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning.